Hello and welcome to this edition of La Pura Vida Costa Rica and sponsored by South Pacific Costa Rica Real Estate here along the South Pacific coast of Costa Rica. Today I have with me Carlos Umaña from San Jose, Costa Rica. Carlos is an attorney and is not able to join us today by video, though you will see in this post his photo so that you can know who he is. Carlos is an esteemed attorney, has owned his own firm or co-owned his own firm for more than 30 years. Correct, Carlos?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
How are you?
Hi, and welcome. Thank you very much for being with us today, being with me today, and for being open to having this conversation about gaining residency in Costa Rica, which a lot of our clients are very interested in hearing about. So first of all, thank you for your time. You're a busy attorney. You're a very busy guy and well-esteemed, obviously, not just in San Jose, but very much abroad, having worked with a number of foreign clients for quite some time.
Indeed, and it's my pleasure to be helping you out today.
Very good. Thank you so much. So let me give a little bit more background about your firm. Your firm overall, it has been around for 40 years. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. It was started by my partner, and then I joined, and I've been with them about 30 years.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I saw on your CV, on your bio, that you've been there since 1987. And your specialization, Carlos, is in foreign investments, specifically real estate and also commercial law. Correct?
That is correct. Our law firm has specialized in foreign investment, as you say, and we have done from small investment to large investment, say golf courses, hotels, down to just the retiree who wants to come and reside in the country, and they buy their home and stay back in Costa Rica. So we have a lot of clients with a lot of aims and a lot of businesses in the country.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you say foreigners, are those generally here in South Pacific Costa Rica, the bulk of foreigners that we see? We have some from Europe, but the bulks are gringos or people from North America, Canada, the U.S. Is the bulk of your clientele the same, or do you see people from all over the world?
Well, we do have people from all over the world, but as you say, basically the bulk is North Americans, Canadians, and people from the States.
Right.
And when you say gringos in this country, it's not a bad word, you know.
Right.
We like gringos a lot.
Yes, you do. You're very welcoming in this country. That's absolutely true, which is probably why so many gringos, Canadians, and others feel so comfortable moving to Costa Rica and living in Costa Rica as expats. And obviously that's a benefit for all of us, no? For you as an attorney doing what you do, and for us in real estate and so forth.
Good, that's right.
Now, your background is you got your law degree from La Universidad Autónoma de Centro America. Is that here in Costa Rica?
Yes. Keep in mind that when you study law, you got to actually study where you're going to be practicing, because the systems are so different from country to country. Correct. That you got to study where you're going to practice.
Right. Okay, very good. Awesome. And then the way that I know you is through my husband and partner, Yor Jimenez, and you've done millions of dollars in transactions, real estate transactions with him over, George said, about the past 20 years. So that's the way we came to know each other over the last 2 or 3 years, I think now. So yeah, that's basically our background in the relationship that we have together.
That is correct, and it has been a real pleasure to meet you through Jorge, who's been a good client and friend for so many years now.
Yes, very good. Thank you. And thank you again, Carlos, for making time for this today. All right, so
my pleasure.
Let's do this. I'm going to just go to our list of questions that we have, and we'll start down the line those, and this will just be an open conversation as to the topic. So the topic today is gaining residency in Costa Rica, which a lot of people obviously have a lot of questions about, thus this conversation. So the first question is, how is a foreigner who has moved to Costa Rica able to gain legal residency in Costa Rica?
Costa Rica welcomes most foreigners who decide to relocate in Costa Rica. You know, we are opened. Nevertheless, as in any other part of the world, people who want to stay down in Costa Rica and become residents, they do have to apply and follow a procedure.
Right.
The procedure it's not too complicated, but it has its ins and outs, and it does take a long time, usually about 12 months to be achieved. No matter what people say or what other attorneys might tell you, it's 12 months on an average.
Okay.
They are programs established by the government in which you must qualify. You cannot just simply say, I want to stay back in Costa Rica and live in Costa Rica because I like the country. Right. You must qualify. You must have a reason why you're going to be staying in the country. And there are different kinds of programs like investor programs, retiree programs, programs for people who want to work in the country, programs for people who marry into Costa Rican, and so forth. So all in all, you do have to follow a procedure. And as I usually tell my clients, Costa Rica is almost heaven, but it's paperwork hell. And a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork to achieve and bring from the U.S. and so forth. Yes. But as part of our work and our job is to make it easier for the client. So we should guide the client, depending on the specific program they're going to be applying with. Okay. We guide the client on what they got to bring, how they got to bring it, and so forth. All right. Because most of the problems that you might encounter through the procedure is when the client brings documents that are not correct or correctly stamped and so forth. Mm-hmm. And those are the major problems we usually have. Okay. If we guide the client, we take them by the hand, usually it's quite simple.
Okay, very good. So about 12 months is the average for that type of a process, for the application process, for whatever type of residency visa you're applying for.
Correct. It usually takes about 12 months. It is not unusual for the procedure to take a little bit longer, but to be honest with you, no matter what other attorneys might say or whatever you read on books,
4 to 6 months and all that
it does take less than 12 months.
Okay. At a minimum, we should
It's usually 12 months.
Okay, a minimum, we should say.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so when you spoke about being eligible for legal residency via a number of options, a number of paths, more or less, can you talk a little bit more about that? How one becomes eligible, or maybe what are the different ways that's an option?
Yes. Well, usually what we do, there are so many programs that you can apply for that usually what we do is we talk to the client and we ask the client what is they're going to be doing down here, what is their aim in Costa Rica. Okay. So based on what they tell us, we try to steer them into the right program. Okay. Mm-hmm. Usually I would say that most everybody applies for an investor residency, which is basically when they come to the country and they invest in the country. Fortunately, about 4 years ago, the government opened the possibility of for the foreign to invest in their own home and use that investment for the application for residency.
Oh, so that's
that is the best, simplest way to go about it.
Okay, so, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. So that's actually only 4 years old, that possibility?
Yes, indeed. Maybe 4 or 5 years old. I can't really remember the date exactly. Okay. But it's basically new. In the old days, you were not able to use your home to apply for residency. Okay. Now you can do it.
Okay. And in some of the other investments that could be made. So if someone comes and buys a property they're not going to live on, but as an investment, that's a possibility.
Yes, as long as there is a certification showing that you invested over usually say $230,000, $240,000 to be on the safe side, then you're going to be able to apply. That's the key for you to open the door for the procedure.
Okay. And that's the same, Carlos, if it's a commercial property or a commercial operation that you're purchasing does investment only have to do with real estate? Or could it be another type of investment?
It could be another type of investment, but real estate is the simplest and safest. Okay. Because if you have other kinds of investments, you would have to certify the value of your business, and that could get a little bit complicated. Okay. And the immigration department, usually they work only with, basically with real estate investments.
Okay. to make it simple, and in my case, real estate is the bulk of what we see anyway. So, but I just wanted to be clear because obviously that's a question as well that kind of sometimes comes from this topic. So what is the process for gaining legal residency or for applying for legal residency in Costa Rica?
Okay, people will have to bring, well, first of all, decide in which program they can apply.
Of course.
And say, for example, the investment program, which is the most popular one, they will have to bring some documents from the U.S., basically birth certificate, marriage certificate, and police record, hopefully lack of police record.
Right.
And in there, you would have to put them through a... Yes. Some of my clients worry about, oh, I got a DUI or I got a little misdemeanor or whatever. Those are not a problem. We're talking about real problems, okay?
Right. Okay.
Little problems like that they're not going to be an issue. Okay. So they bring these documents down. They would have to put them through a certain procedure up in the U.S., basically to get what we call an apostille, which is a stamp given by usually the State Department. Mm-hmm. They bring the document down, and down here we create a lot of other documents. They got to take a physical, and when we have all this in place, we bring them to take some fingerprints, mm-hmm. and after that, we present the application to the Immigration Department. At the Immigration Department, once you make your application, they're going to give you a little certification. This certification, it's going to be good for you to go around in Costa Rica with no problems, showing that you have applied, that you're under the process. Okay. Now, the law says that as long as you're under the process, you can legally stay in the country. Uh-huh. You don't need to exit the country, okay? So it's a limbo situation because you're not going to be a resident, you're not going to be a tourist anymore, but you're under the process. And since you're under the process, you're going to be fine. Nobody can kick you out of the country in the meantime. Okay.
So for many extranjeros or foreigners then, that before that time have gotten that piece of paper that says they are in the legal process of applying for residency, they don't necessarily have to come and go within that 90-day tourist visa window any longer.
No, they won't have to exit the country every 3 months. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, they might charge them a little fine whenever they do, because as I say, you're not a resident, you're not a tourist anymore.
You're in limbo.
So you're in limbo. They still charge you the fine, but they're not going to force you out of the country, or you're not going to get into any kind of trouble.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's go to the next question then. What's the minimum threshold? You mentioned a couple of numbers, but the question is, what is the minimum threshold for the real estate investment path to residency? I've heard in the past that the minimum is $200,000, but I heard you mention a moment ago $230,000 to $240,000. We're talking U.S. dollars versus Canadian dollars. So clarify that a little bit for us.
Yes, the threshold is $200,000. Nevertheless, we usually try to present the value application or the value appraisal a little bit over the threshold, just to be on the safe side. Okay. So houses in this country, they're going to be usually over the $200,000 mark, unless it's a very small house. Mm-hmm. But that's quite a price that's quite common, and over that. So we like, if possible, to go a little bit higher than the threshold to make sure that your application is going to be approved. Okay. So if possible, 220, 230, 40, that's even better.
Okay, very good. Okay, but the legal minimum per law is $200,000. Okay, just to be sure there's no issues. I understand what you're saying. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the typical costs for a residency visa in Costa Rica? What the client or the person applying could expect generally?
Yes. The regular cost is somewhere, well, it depends on which attorney and which law firm you're going to be using.
Yes.
Obviously, but a standard amount or an average amount should be somewhere around $1,500 up to $2,000. Okay. That is a regular situation. You're going to find people who are going to be charging you a little bit more. Mm-hmm. If they charge you a little bit less, beware. Maybe they're not the kind of attorney you want to be involved with. There's a lot of attorneys in the country, and unfortunately, not a lot of them are reputable enough to, trust them with your papers and your procedures.
Yeah.
So you got to watch a little bit there.
Yes, of course. Well, unfortunately, as many things are in an environment that is not as regulated as other countries, there tends to be shysters in some areas, whether it's law firms or any other type of operation. So it's often here in Costa Rica, you need to be very cautious and get good recommendations and referrals on people you choose to work with as service providers. And the same, in my opinion, goes for law firms, because you have to use a law firm for almost everything. So.
Correct. That's correct.
Very good. Okay, so $1,500 to $2,000. And is the bulk of that money usually spent with the attorney for the services that they provide versus fees direct to the government, to the various agencies for the application?
Actually, it goes to the attorney. I got to be honest with you, but it's a long work, and it's a lot of work to obtain a residency. It's 12 months of work in which you got to go to the immigration department and stand in line, and it's really worth it.
Right.
Some people try to go and do the residency on their own, and after the first couple visits to the immigration department, they usually say, "You know what? I'm going to pay you for this." It's not really worth it. I'm giving up. Yeah, it's difficult. I'm an attorney, but I do not recommend that you people go out and try to do it on your own.
Right.
Still, you're going to need an attorney at certain points,
but
it's too complicated. It's too complicated.
Makes sense. I mean, for a year's work, $1,500 to $2,000 is nothing. Let's be honest. Especially for the opportunity to live here legally. It's, in my mind, it's not that it's chump change, but at the same time, if you're getting a great value out of what you're receiving, I think it's worth it. That's my opinion. Okay, so
appreciate that.
You're welcome. This is my opinion. Does getting your residency visa, Carlos, give you the right to work in Costa Rica? So say you've gone through the process, you've gone through the year plus, you have been approved. Do you then have a right to, have to get a job, or how does that work?
Well, not really. Not really. When you want to work in Costa Rica, you got to apply for a working visa.
Okay.
And they're not simple to obtain. They are quite difficult to obtain. Usually, they're given out to people who work for international companies, and they are moved into Costa Rica as part of their jobs.
Relocated.
So the company kind of grants the visa for them.
Okay.
But for an individual to come down here and seek work, it's difficult because the government tries to protect workers. So unless you are a very specialized, unless you are a very specialized technician or a very specialized doctor or so forth, it's very difficult to get a working permit. If you get a residency through investment, you're not supposed to work.
You're not supposed to work.
If you get a residency only when you marry into a Costa Rican or father of Costa Rican, then you're supposed to work to support your wife and to support your child. So in that case, your residency is free of condition and you can work.
Okay, so I'm going to restate that just to make sure everybody got it, because you cut out a little bit from the internet connection. It sounds like then that unless you marry a Costa Rican national or you have a Costa Rican child, meaning a child is born between your couple here in Costa Rica, then that has certain different parameters than if you're just an individual coming, you buy some real estate, you get your residency visa, and then generally that person is not allowed to work. Did I lose you?
Correct.
Oh, there. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
When you father a Costa Rican child or you marry limitations, you could do pretty much whatever. Yes.
Okay. It's different because at that point you're considered a bit of a tico or a national via that relationship. Okay. Let me just give you a couple of other examples I'd like your comment on. What would it look like, say, if I come to Costa Rica, I don't marry a Costa Rican or have a child here to guarantee that type of work opportunity. I get my residency. Then I decide I would like to open a business. Can I just open a corporation? Because that's not really going to work for someone else. That's working for myself, more or less. And then if I open that corporation, can I work in that company, or how does that work? Because frankly, we see a lot of that here in Costa Rica.
Well, yes, you are correct. Corporations, it's an instrument that we use a lot in Costa Rica to protect ourselves from liability.
Okay.
So it's not unusual to see foreigners with corporations in the country. As a foreign, you have exactly the same rights and obligations as a Costa Rican, except for political rights. Hence, you can own property, you can own a corporation.
Okay.
Now, you are not supposed, when you own your corporation, you open a business, you create a corporation to hold the business, and you are not supposed to work for the corporation. You cannot actually earn a salary in the corporation or be behind the counter. But you can very well watch over your corporation.
Okay.
Keep an eye over what your employees are doing, keep an eye on how it's going and so forth. That's no problem. But you cannot really work for the corporation, even though it's your own corporation.
So you can.
Maybe it's a technicality, but that's how it goes. It's maybe, it's semantics maybe, but that's how it works. You're not supposed to work for your corporation, but you can watch over your corporation. You can see how it's going.
Okay. So you can oversee activities. But obviously, the goal of most active corporations, not shell corporations that are trying to hold investments, holding investments like a house or a car, but if it's an active corporation doing something, some kind of work, what I hear you saying is that if I'm a foreigner and I have opened that corporation and set it forward to do business, I need to hope, it sounds like probably the country wants me to hire nationals to actually do the work, correct?
Then that is correct. Okay. That is correct. You're not supposed to work for the corporation. You cannot be behind the counter or behind the cashier, but you can be around watching and making right. Okay.
Very good. Okay, just to clarify, because that's a common thing that we see here along the coast that I'm sure you probably see there in the city. Again, in environments like Costa Rica that are not always followed up on in terms of the laws that are in place. There's sometimes is room for people to take advantage and so forth. So I just wanted to clarify that from a legal perspective. So thank you for your comment.
My pleasure.
My pleasure. All right. Well, we've completed the piece about gaining residency in Costa Rica. I think we've covered everything. Is there any other comments you'd like to make, Carlos, from your perspective, things that you've seen with your clients, or any other common questions that maybe we haven't covered that people ask you?
Well, my advice to most of my clients is just take Costa Rica as it comes. Yes. Don't overstress about it.
Right.
The procedures are the procedures. They're going to take whatever time they're going to take. You cannot push them faster than what they are. People sometimes, they come down here and they want to have the residency within 3 months, and they make mistakes. They go and pay residencies, and they go pay some attorneys, and that is a major mistake. Just take it as it is.
Right.
Relax, take your time. Nothing is for right now in Costa Rica. Everything is basically for tomorrow. So just go with the flow. And if you do that, you're going to be great in Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's actually really good overall advice. So thank you, Carlos, for sharing that. Very good.
My pleasure.
And actually, it's right in line with the blog that I do, which is called La Pura Vida Costa Rica, which is about real life in Costa Rica. Not trying to bring your culture here and slam it on top of the sunshine and the beach walks and butterflies and birds and all that, but being realistic about it, coming from a different cultural background, and yet enjoying it for everything that it is. Like you said, it's amazing. It's absolutely heaven. I say it's paradise, but it's not perfect.
There you go.
Very good, Carlos. Well, thank you so much. I'll send you a link to this once I have it up on lapuravidacostarica.com. And again, we'll be sharing it on our Facebook page and on our website, South Pacific Costa Rica Real Estate. So I look forward to seeing that there. And thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you making yourself available for this.
My pleasure. And whatever you need, just give me a call.
Very good. And to end out, for those of you that have joined us, if you have any interest in working with Carlos, please shoot me an email at JuliAnne@CostaRicaPacificRealEstate.com, and we'll be happy to make that introduction for you and get you introduced to Carlos, who's been, obviously, as you've heard, 30 years specifically with his firm, specializing in, especially working with foreigners from around the world, and especially those from North America and Europe, and working specifically in real estate and commercial law. So he has a long track record, a lot of great referrals and recommendations, and we're very pleased to be working with him on many of our transactions. So, signing out, and look forward to seeing you soon.